What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Yee podcast. What are we talking about today?
I was thinking that, well, the first thing that was on my mind was I've been on like a Duck Dynasty kick since Phil Robertson passed away, and I've just been thinking. I just feel like, when something happens, then all of a sudden you start seeing it everywhere. I was like, man, the legacy of the Robertson family is really fascinating. And I was telling Tyler, why are you smiling over there? You look like you're laughing.
I'm just in a joyful mood today.
Wow. And I was thinking about, like, I just have these random videos that keep coming up on my feed of Phil Robertson, and he's like showing he said the title of the video was America needs to learn how to make tea again. And he's like it's like his old same old house he's always been in his old kitchen looks like your granddad's kitchen, and he's just like got this old tea maker, and he's like everybody wakes up anxious. You woke up angry. You don't even know why you woke up angry. And then you realize, well, I went to bed angry last night. Why do I feel so uneasy? I don't have any peace. He goes, get you a nice stout cup of unsweet tea. Sit back. That ain't going to hurt. And then open up the word. And then he just like transitions it really nicely into like a nice little Bible lesson. It was just like an old Bible opened up on his like messy kitchen counter. And I was like, man, that's cool, because they were like, I think sometimes, like, what do I want to do? What do I want to do with my life? What do I want to do with this brand? And how do we use it for God's glory? And I know there's a bunch of different ways you can do it, but I was just thinking about how the Robertsons have like encouraged me and like kind of paved the way in terms of their, like, when I've been listening to Phil, the videos of him, he just never let it get, you can tell as much as I can see that he didn't let it get to his head. He's just same old Phil, same old truck, same old kitchen, same old unsweet tea in his old maker and his old Bible. And that was just like encouraging to me that, like, man, he did that for all those years and was faithful, and like hopefully brought a lot of people to the Lord, and was like a good example of somebody who was in the limelight and also like crossed cultures of, like, everybody knows Duck Dynasty and Buck Commander and those old duck calls, and when they were on that show, and then still even today I was like looking at their podcast, I'm like, wow, it is called Unashamed, and they just like open up the Bible and talk about it like that, and like they got a lot of views and a lot of people supported them. So
Yeah, I really liked when they rolled out the news of his death. I don't know if you guys saw this. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but everything I saw from all the kids
pointed to Jesus.
It was all like it was never, it's with a heavy heart.
Yeah.
We come to you, great sadness of the family. It was just like, praise the Lord, he's gone home. Man, what an example he was to me. Here's a quick video that just makes me laugh. It was like all that kind of stuff from every kid, and
yeah,
it was so cool. It's like, oh Lord, that's it, man. You could tell the walk of a man's faith by how people react at his funeral, right? And he has for so long planted seeds, and for so long he has told his kids, don't you dare weep for me when I die, because I'll be in glory. Don't you dare be sad. Rejoice with me. It's like he said that so many times that people actually believe it. And so I didn't see one bit of sadness.
Yeah, it's great. Just joy.
Yeah, it was like you finished the race, brother. You did it. You did it.
Well done, good and faithful servant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll add a little bit to that I feel like I have a good level of discernment with people.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of, celebrities or famous people in our line of work over the years, and I had the privilege of meeting Willie recently at a event Granger was nominated for at an award show for his book Like a River, and Willie was there, and me and Granger were sitting there. Granger has a relationship with him before, but I hadn't, and he was just very genuine, very real, everything that you think he is, that you see on the show. Being with Granger, a lot of people in my line of work want Granger and engage with Granger. But Willie, in that conversation, you know how when you're in a conversation with somebody and they're always looking over your shoulder to see who is the next person, the more famous person that comes in the room, and they're always looking. There was never that with him, and we need to be intentional with that too. Like, be present where your feet are, talk to who you're talking to, respect everybody from the janitor to president of the United States. But anyway, Willie was just not only engaged, he came to us, not only engaged with Granger, but engaged with me. You know, in a conversation when people are looking around and talking to each person, that's the way I felt, just super comfortable, like I'd known him forever. So my whole point to say that, like, to Parker's original point, what a, it's very cool to see somebody in the spotlight and famous that glorifies God and is authentic and real and down to earth. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah, same. Yeah, we sometimes just have really long phone call conversations, Willie and I, and he's just, he just makes you feel like there's nothing else going on. Which like Tyler said, I try to make sure that I'm trying to make sure that people have that impression with me.
They're a family that has, I know I already said this, but it's just, I don't know. It's like they've just bridged that gap of, like, Yeti did like a Yeti Presents on them recently, just because they like how they like duck hunt and stuff. But then they're also like unashamedly, all they do is talk about the Bible on their podcast. I just think it's interesting that, like, they've been the kind of the people to kind of pave the way.
good role models. And
Role models.
and thankful that we've had that for our company, to look towards somebody like Phil and Willie who've created a successful outdoor brand that glorifies Christ. And then hopefully somebody watching this show one day will be like, man, those Yee brothers and that Yee thing, like, they had a successful business, but they glorified God, and they inspired me to create something for future generations.
Yeah.
I was talking to one of my neighbors last night, and he was talking about how he has to drive to Denton to go shoot at a range, outdoor range. And I was just basically going to say, like, we have an outdoor range here if you want to use it. And he goes, I know who you are. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I know who you were the first day I met you. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, he meant it in like a nice way.
Yeah.
He was just like, yeah, man, like, that's awesome. But yeah, I know you have that range and stuff. And I was like, oh, cool. And then, like, Amy was talking to him and was like asking him if they had a faith. And he was like, yeah, I know y'all are like pretty religious. And I was,
no, we're just Christians.
And I was thinking afterward, I was like, Amy and I were on a walk, and I was like, it is interesting. I was like, I never thought in my life that I would be characterized as the religious guy. And I still don't think of myself as, like, religious.
Like Nicodemus.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. We just love Jesus. But yeah, the world just views it as, like, I don't know. Those Duck Dynasty guys, yeah, they're pretty religious. And Phil was actually talking about, I watched another interview with Phil Robertson, and he was saying initially all of his old buddies were like, he's kind of this, like, religious wacko, where Phil just, like, kind of lost it. Like, what happened to
He didn't come drink with the boys anymore? Like, what's going on?
What happened to old Phil? And then Phil said eventually, over time, a few of them, after enough time went by, were like, so what's the deal with this? What's the deal with this God stuff? And Phil says, and then I tell him. And I tell him the story, and I point him to the scripture, and he said, and every once in a while, one of them is like, I believe that. And it just takes time. It takes enough, some suffering, some trial in their life, enough, trying to climb up the hill and realizing that this is all meaningless without God. And they eventually come, and so.
Yeah, Jesus, it just comes down to really what really got me several years ago was that he either is who he says he is or he's not. And that there is not a, Jesus is cool for me sometimes. Like, occasionally I'm not super religious, but I do, like, believe that stuff. That doesn't exist because of the statements Jesus has made.
Unless you just
that backs that up.
Yeah, unless you just don't believe in the reliability of the Bible, and you just, like, all of that's fabricated. Jesus may not have even existed. But most people accept the historicity of the Bible and them as historical documents. That's the way I was. I believe Scripture was true, but I didn't realize what Jesus was saying about himself. And then just like you said, that's why Tim Keller always says, number one, try to figure out if the gospels are reliable. If they are, you can trust them. Okay, now we read what it says. Number two, who is Jesus saying that he is?
And then it's shocking. And then you go, uh-oh. Something needs to change immediately, because I'm not lining up with what he's saying. I'm not living a life that reflects what he says that he is. Not that we earn it, but that's the first time you recognize. That's what the law came to do, is came to be a guardian of faith, so that people outside of it, or the law keepers, would go, something's not right. Uh-oh. I need something. I don't quite know what it is yet, but I'm kind of working through these scriptures, and I recognize I'm lacking something. There's a disconnect. Because he says, if anyone would come after me, he must let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it. Whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what would it profit a man if he gained the whole world and lost his soul?
Parker was telling me this morning that that's part of his testimony was, how a lot of us go through sufferings and depressions and loss, rock bottom, to find Jesus. And Parker was saying where everything was great, everything was rocking for him, but he still, even in that, felt a sense of, I'm missing something.
And I had this moment yesterday, because mom's staying with us right now, and she showed me a video on her phone of David, your son, dancing to the worship yesterday on the front row at church. And there's another picture of me preaching, and you could see the back of David's head. There's a camera shot. He's sitting in the chair, and you see me at the pulpit. And I was like, I immediately thought of Riv. I immediately thought God's sovereign work through the loss of Riv opened this crater of faith that just really, the crevices continue to break apart like shockwaves through so much. And all the way into David, this, almost 2-year-old, 1.5-year-old dancing at church to worship music when he would not have been there had it not been for that crater opening up. Not to say David's a Christian. I'm not saying he's a Christian. I'm just saying he's now growing up in an environment where the gospel is clearly spoken to him daily and sung and modeled, and he's seeing men singing and praising and hearing and listening and reading. Crazy stuff.
He was saying your name when you were up there.
Really?
Yeah. At the members meeting last night. He was watching you.
Said, G.
I was thinking, I told Mom, David, all his memory is going to be is, I remember Uncle Granger just preaching my whole life. That's all he's ever done. So I don't have any other memory of Uncle Granger than him being at the pulpit preaching.
Except for one day a year at the Yee farm on stage. Yeah, I think it's super cool. I shouldn't say cool, but profound and meaningful and potentially life-changing when you think about God in the midst of suffering, when a lot of people would say that God has nothing to do with your suffering. He's sitting back. It's just a sinful world. People die. People get cancer. Things happen. But then when you think about God working all things for good, for those who love him, then you can see, like you said, God allowing Riv to die and then using that monumental crater, like you said, for all of this. I mean, so much has happened after that domino.
In 6 years coming up in 2 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it.
Yeah, man. And then it brings so much meaning to the trials and to the suffering of how God can then use that, and he's still good and he's still just. And he turned all of our worlds completely upside down. He turned everybody in our network's worlds up. The guy who runs this podcast, Brian, was saved after that. His friends were saved. so many of our friends have been saved. You know, I've married a Christian since then, and now we've had a little boy, and like he's gonna grow up hearing the word. It's just, yeah, it's just crazy. It's hard when you really can't fathom, you know, everything that was orchestrated
Yeah, you
through
can't.
that God's plans. Thinking about the verse about how the man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. And it really gives you, not to go on a monologue here, but it really gives you, it's almost like a cheat code to life when you realize that God is sovereign or in control of every single thing that happens. And so even when the trials come, that was his plan. You never have to worry if you're in his plan or not when the trials come. As long as you're not in disobedience or blatant sin, and you're just loving God, you're living your life. When the trials come, you don't have to wonder if that trial was karma, or maybe I should have let that help the lady across the street, or, you know, you can just wake up and know that no matter what happens, it's all under God's sovereign care and protection, and you're his child. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yesterday I had this conversation with one of our members, Joey. You guys, of course, you know Joey, but he serves as an usher for us, and he just does it with so much joy. Did y'all see it yesterday?
The hat,
Because
cowboy
we
hat.
were so packed yesterday. We were all, you know, our parking lot was full. We're in the middle of trying to figure out what we're going to do with our space, and Joey, one of our ushers, just like steps in, and yeah, he wears a cowboy hat, but he like will get in there, and when people come in a little bit late into the sanctuary, he like goes and finds a seat and like brings them in. And I told him afterward, I actually told him during it, but I told him afterward, I said, man, thank you so much for serving us the way you do. Just so full of joy. And he said, man, you know, I was a waiter for many years at a restaurant, and I loved serving. And then I got another job, and I took the other job, like went up, you know, trying to build a career. And when I left serving as a waiter, I felt empty, and I felt like I was missing my purpose. And he said, then I realized here at the church that all along God had cultivated my ability to serve in this very specific way. And I thought it was waiting tables until I realized, no, it's serving in this way at a church. And then I was like, wow, me too, because I just preached, and I feel a love of serving in the form of teaching. And so for so many years as a musician, as I loved it, but I always, at the end of a tour or the end of a single, I always felt like, there's got to be more. There's got to be more to this serving thing. And just like him at the restaurant, that's because my fullness of gifting was to be behind a pulpit teaching more than it was on a country music stage playing. And that was just a big moment I had when Joey was sick, because everyone has a different gift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. What else is going on with you guys?
London really wants to go to the beach. Grangers leaving to an undisclosed location in a couple weeks.
With her, yeah.
We're going fishing with Skipper Mock's son.
The week after the Latin America, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. We grew up going fishing with Dad. And for the listeners, I'll lay it out. We used to go as kids to South Padre Island, and we had a fishing guide. His name was Skipper Mock. It would be me, Granger, and you were too young at the time, but I think you still went, but you just stayed with Mom. Me, Granger, Dad, and Skipper. We haven't been in years, like a decade or more. And
more.
And we found out Skipper died in 2021, but he has a son, and he looks exactly like his dad.
Does
He's a guide, yeah. And he's a guide there now. So I reached out to him on Instagram and told him the story. We used to go with his dad, and so we booked it with him. That's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, man. hooking on a redfish in Laguna Madre, in Texas, in that bay area. Man,
Gulf of America.
it is something in itself. One of the coolest things, and just the beauty of the Laguna Madre.
It's so cool how you can be in the middle of it and it's a foot deep.
Yeah,
And then you look out and you see the school and you say, cast over there. And you just throw out there to the school.
Yeah.
And it's cool.
yeah, that bay is just gorgeous.
Did they officially change it to the Gulf of America? They did? Brian's giving me a thumbs up.
Depends on the map, I guess, right? The apple's the Gulf of America.
This will be my first time fishing in the Gulf of America, I guess. Technically, we're in the bay side.
After Trump leaves office, are they just going to switch it back?
It is. It sure enough is.
No way.
Yeah, an apple.
Wow. Poor Mexico.
That is hilarious.
Can we just, that's cool and all, but can we just lower interest rates and figure out this tariff thing and, the important stuff?
Making the Gulf great again.
Crazy. Yeah, we restored River's red go-kart. Did you hear about this?
Yeah.
I had donated it to a guy, and then recently I realized Maverick's kind of growing out of his little battery-operated toys. And I was like, hey, man, do you have that go-kart? And he was like, yeah, my kids have grown out of it. So I went to pick it up, and it was kind of trashed. He had obviously left it out in the yard for 5 years or whatever. And I brought it back, and I was frustrated. I told this story to Amber yesterday. I was frustrated because I was ready for Mav to start driving this go-kart. It'd be so much more efficient than all his battery-operated things. And I was so frustrated. I looked at it like the seatbelt was like breaking apart, and so I was like, got online and I found one just like it and got it, ordered it. Then Wazinski comes to my house, and I was like, man, can you believe that go-kart got so trashed? And he goes, I can fix it. I was like, you can? He goes, yeah. So he goes to the auto parts store, comes back with a few things, changed out the carburetor, cleaned it up, WD-40 here and
I
there.
didn't know he knows engines, too.
Fixed
Dude,
it.
he knows everything.
Dude,
now.
he had that thing running in like an hour.
Wow.
And so then I was like, well, shoot, I can't cancel the other go-kart, so now I'm going to have two. So I guess we'll be running two of them.
Wow.
Mario Kart.
Him and David will be racing.
Yeah. So now Maverick loves it. Just like I thought, because now the go-kart, it has extra power. Like you can go up a little berm, or it's not going to get stuck in the grass, and it's still so we realized he hadn't learned how to brake, because on the electric cars, all you do is let off the gas, it stops. He hadn't learned what a brake means. And I hadn't adjusted that brake. That's one thing. Johnny did the engine. I didn't adjust the brake yet, which means on those go-karts, sometimes the pressure of them gets off, and you could push it all the way to the floor, and it's not stopping. So you have to kind of adjust the cable line of the brake line. So he gets on it and goes, and he's going in our backyard, and I was like, stop. And he looks at me and goes, I can't. And he goes right into the wood pile on our back porch, just bam! I mean, straight into the wood pile, up from the grass.
Better than a wall.
Yeah, onto
That's like
our
the
back,
perfect thing.
onto our back porch. The front tires hit the porch. It pops up, does a wheelie straight into the wood pile. The wood explodes, and like the go-kart's like up on one tire, but it's got a 4-point harness, and he had a helmet on.
Yeah, so the
So
harness helps so there's no whiplash.
Yeah, he's just totally strapped in there, not even a scratch. And
Yeah.
he's just like, help. Amber comes running out like, no, never again. No. And I was like, hold up. Listen just a second. He's okay. The harness kept him perfectly. He slammed into this, but you got to admit, like, it's pretty impressive. He's perfectly intact. All I need to do is teach him how to brake. So then we spent like an hour with me riding on the side of the frame saying, stop. Okay, good job. Yeah.
That's exactly what a good dad should do. Let him do it. No, I'm not saying anything against Amber. That's what a good mom should do. But I mean, go ask mom all the accents and stuff like that I got into.
Teach them how to control the chaos rather than
yeah,
just withdraw
then
them
take
altogether.
Yeah, then take it away, and then you're just building the resiliency in a little boy. That's what he's born to do and wants to do. And
Can you imagine Amber looking out the window and all from the kitchen, and all she sees is him going straight into the woodpile? What? But then something happened that, like, a few days after that. He goes. It dies. The go-kart dies, and he goes around to pull the pull start, and he touches the muffler with his hand. Those mufflers get really hot. Touches the muffler, burns his hand, starts crying. Amber runs out there, grabs him. I'm in the house. I hear about what happens. I hear the crying coming from, like, the back porch into the house, into the bathroom, and Amber's just like, oh. I go, what? Burn his hand. He burn his hand. It's like you could see the red, the puffy on the bottom of the palm, and, like, on the tips, every finger, the tips of the fingers, and, like,
again, he's learning.
yeah, and
it's great.
And she's like, oh, do we have? She's like violently going through.
Oh yeah, that's why she texted Amy for the prescription stuff. Yeah,
she's like violently going through the med kit, like looking for. And I was like, what?
Put some ice on it, rub some dirt on it.
She was like, he burned his hand, and I was like, every boy, at some point, has to touch a muffler. Here, I was like, buddy, you're fine. He's looking at me, like he's looking at me, like, what do I do? And I was like, I know it hurts. Come to me. I know what to do. We go in the kitchen, get a cup, put water in the cup. Say, stick your hand in there. Sticks it in there. Instant relief. You remember this when we were kids, like when you get a burn?
Mm-hmm. All the time.
Stick your hand in a cup of water. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, it's okay, buddy. Tomorrow you'll wake up. You won't even feel it. But you're going to have to walk around the rest of today holding the cup. So he's like walking around the cup, holding it. And Amber's like, should I go to Walgreens? Should I get some cream, some burn? I'm like, babe, it's a muffler. Every kid has to touch a muffler. Then you never touch it again.
Well, hey, let me just put this out there that, again, you're doing what you should do, and Amber's doing what you should do.
Yeah.
And that's just a whole nother layer and story of the importance of a mom and dad in the family.
Yeah.
To have both of those sides.
Yeah.
Because think if you take one out of the equation, what does that do to the boy?
Yeah.
And he goes to Walgreens and he gets pampered when he doesn't need it. Or what happens when you take away the mom and the dad is just too tough. You need both.
Yeah, that's true.
So Lincoln didn't want Riv's old go-kart?
Lincoln's never been into riding anything. All he wants to do is play football, baseball, basketball, track.
Even when what about when he was like 4 and 5, 6?
Nope, never. Like, he'll go ride a go-kart for 10 minutes, and he's like, Dad, you want to throw football? All he thinks about is sports.
Yeah.
Lincoln reminds me of me.
Yeah, it's
I don't know
weird.
where did Riv and Mav get that from you? Like riding things?
No, I don't think so. I don't know how Brian was actually there when it started with Riv because he was filming the Smiths, and we got that. Amber, like she always does, finds those little vehicles on Facebook Marketplace. She got that first little John Deere, which Lincoln never had one, never was interested. We get it, and I built a ramp in the backyard, and Riv was like jumping the ramp and would just go over and over. Brian's filming. We made a Smiths episode, and you put holler music to it. It was pretty
I feel like Lincoln's in the minority though. Like, I think if I had a go-kart, I would have been. I mean, who doesn't love a go-kart as a kid?
Yeah.
Like, if you had a go-kart track in your
that's
backyard
true.
as a little boy, that would be so awesome. Especially now that you have 2. And really, like you said, the best part about those with those 4-part harnesses and with the helmet and with the roll cage, like, there's really nothing that's going to happen unless you just don't brake and you just slam into a tree. You could get bad whiplash, but
If he's going into a brush pile though with sticks, maybe you get like a visor in front of his eyes.
I bet, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like he's not going to need to learn that lesson twice, though.
Yeah, I mean, you could roll it and have your hand out and break your arm.
That's the danger, is if your hands are out. You just
Yeah.
need to know, always keep your hands on the steering wheel.
I
Or
did.
like you see
But also, I have a governor on that accelerator. It just can't go fast, and I've seen him whip that steering wheel pretty hard, and it's so low to the ground, it doesn't even want to tip at all.
I did the same thing when I was a kid learning how to ride a bike, so however old that is. You know those big green recycling trash cans? Remember the one by the church? There was like 2 of them.
I was there.
You were there,
I was
Dad.
there. I saw it. I
and
can still see it in my mind.
I was going down. It was downhill, and I didn't know how to brake, and so I just, bam, just nailed
I
it.
could still see that moment in my mind. We were like, Tyler, stop. You just kept going. Whack.
Right on a what?
Into it.
I was on a bike trying to learn, and I just nailed the
Oh.
side, like going pretty fast because it was downhill.
In my mind, it was the school bus, but you actually hit the recycling bin, you said?
That my brain remembers.
I
Yeah,
thought it was like not a school bus, a church bus.
it's probably a different time. I did that a lot.
You know what is sketchy though is 4-wheelers.
Oh yeah, we will not allow those in our house.
4-wheelers. I mean,
Brian has a really good
so
friend
many people
that lost his leg.
I would say if you're listening to my voice right now and you have a 4-wheeler, sell it. Get you a side-by-side. Get you a Polaris. Get you a John Deere Gator. Get anything.
Unless you're just like the safest person in the world, and
You
you,
can't.
just
It's
do
impossible.
You can't because the grandkids come over or the neighbors come
Oh.
over. Doesn't matter if you're the safest one. Other people come and go, can we ride the 4-wheeler? And at some level, yeah, I have met families on the road in country music. I have met families, like I can't even count how many that have lost someone.
Did you see the same amount with like bikes, like
No.
motorcycles?
No.
More
Four-wheelers-
4-wheelers?
4-wheelers above everything.
Wow.
Above cars, above motorcycles. Motorcycles are different because when you get, I mean, they're very dangerous, obviously, especially on the highway, but you get thrown from them. 4-wheelers fall on you and crush you.
Remember when we were in New Mexico
Yeah. Yeah.
and we were driving in that open field and Uncle
I
Doug,
remember. Hit the barbed wire fence.
hit the barbed wire fence and then just flipped going like 60 and it like went over him.
Yeah.
And
so,
thankfully he got back up.
So that happens and then it comes on top of you.
Yeah.
That's how you die.
Is that
it
how
just-
Nolan lost his leg?
They pulled out in front of a truck on a county road and got T-boned.
Oh, wow.
They should have died, both of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
it's
know
tough.
one of Demolition Ranch's employees died 4-wheeler accident.
Yeah.
Father married with kids. Just one random day on a 4-wheeler. Yeah, you just gotta have a roll cage, man.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, we went through a lot of different topics on this
Yeah.
podcast.
I think we can wrap around there. You guys got anything else? Anything else going on? Yeah, this week, I guess. Yeah, June 4th is the day Riv had the accident 6 years ago. Does
6
it feel
years.
like 6 years ago?
So, it feels like a lot more, honestly.
It's
Yeah.
probably, it feels like another life, and technically it was
Yeah, it was.
because you weren't saved.
I was talking to Mom about it last night. I said, it's still one of those things where I said, if I could talk to myself, like like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure in the phone booth, if I could like appear to myself exactly 60 years ago today, which would have been a Sunday, I guess, for 2 days ahead, and just popped in and just said, hey man, I'm from 6 years in the future. What's it like? Oh, buddy, you're going to have to wait and see. Yeah, I couldn't even begin to explain to you, buddy, because you will not believe me. Well, we'll still be here, right? No, you won't be here.
Which we could do that today
Could.
with our future self, and it all points back to Jesus.
Yeah, man.
Put your hope and
The
peace.
man plans his way. Yeah, you plan. The Lord's going to direct your steps.
Yeah.
Make the plans.
So we can, at the end, to wrap it all up, so we can be like Phil Robertson.
Yep.
When don't cry for me when I'm gone. I am with our Lord and Savior.
Yeah, let me go ahead and make a clip so that, from this podcast, you guys could pull a clip. And let me just say, put it on the record. Do not cry for me if I die. You could shed a tear of joy, but don't shed a tear of sadness that I'm gone. Because the Lord has numbered my days. They are fixed already, just like the number of hairs on my head are fixed, just like the stars in the sky and the grains of sand on the seashore are fixed.
Mhm.
And the day I close my eyes to this earth, I will open them to the Lord. And what a great day that'll be.
And then same with me. To that point, don't say one word about me or my accolades or my awards or how cool or kind or uncle. Talk about Jesus. Because
Yeah.
without him,
And yeah, so let me add to that. Preach the gospel at my
Yeah.
funeral.
yeah,
And call it a funeral. Don't call it a celebration of life. Because I want people to know the reality of death. I don't want to highlight life. I want to say, let's be reminded through the earthly death of Granger's flesh
that is guaranteed for all of us.
that everyone in this room will meet this day one time. Maybe soon, maybe in 80 years, but everyone in this room will have a funeral for their own death. Where will you stand with the Lord on that day? I want that to be said.
Ever since Adam, if you eat of that tree, you will surely die. And ever since then, every man who has been born has died. Like you said, I loved your quote on Sunday, man.
That was my sermon yesterday.
Oh, man.
You must be born again.
If you,
But why do you keep preaching that? Because you must be born again.
Yeah. Yep. If you're born once, you'll die twice. If you're born twice, you'll only die once. I'll let people just chew on that for a little bit.
If you're born once,
If you're born only once, you will die twice.
you will die twice.
Spiritual death here, we are already separated from God, and then Revelation talks about the second death, eternal separation from God, unreconcilable. But if you're born twice, meaning you're born from your mother on earth and then you're born again by the Spirit, then you only have the Adam's first death, and you will not die a second time to God, because you will close your eyes here and wake up and open them to glory in an instant, like the thief on the cross.
If you want to hear that expanded, you can listen to Granger's sermon that he gave yesterday at our church. If you just go to any podcast platform, you just type in Emmaus Church. Let's see if I can find it.
I actually saw it this morning. It's up.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's
We can
Emmaus-
probably link it.
Yeah, Brian, you can put it in the description. And yeah, cool. Thank you guys for listening. See you next week.
Yeet, yeet.